Scale is a big deal, and scale puts an enormous amount of stress on an organization. It just stresses every area of the business. So figuring out how to do it is really critical. At the same time, especially in the tech business or other businesses, market share is really important. So scale matters, right? The guy that gets to scale fastest is the guy who wins, and so scale really matters. So being able to scale is a critical skill, and it's not taught anywhere as far as I know, but it is absolutely critical. If you're in a rapidly expanding business or in a market share where it's a market share grab business, you want to be able to do that, and it's not easy to do.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? Growing fast is not for the faint of heart. In fact, the journey to scale is so important for you to understand that today we're going to look at the inflection points of scaling a business fast. We have a special guest on the show, but what we really want to talk about is how you can understand the key inflection points that allow you to know what's coming around the corner. Our guest today is the co-founder of Aspen Funds. They've been on the Inc. list, but he's also ran a fast growth company, one of the fastest in the Midwest. He was also listed as an E&Y Entrepreneur of the Year. This company was on rocket fuel. And what we learn about the scalability through that period really will help you understand what's coming around the corner. I love having conversations like this with people like Robert, because you can see in the trenches and see behind the scenes of what's going on as they scale. We talk about hiring the key employees that really we learn from. We also look at, do you take money or not take money? That's one of the biggest decisions every entrepreneur has to make. But we look at what happens when losing it all and what do you do next. All in this episode on Grow Think Tank. When you think about your journey to leadership, are you crystal clear what it takes to be a better leader and grow your company to the next step? I find that some people are sort of clear. It's a little murky. They're putting their head down, they're getting the work done, and they show up every day, and hopefully it'll all work out. Here's what I know for sure. The best laid plans are intentional. You probably believe that. You'd love to have a clear plan about you being an extraordinary leader. I offer a chance for you to sit down with me and talk about what your steps are. What are the challenges with your team, your business? And we can help you get really clear about the next step, your priority. And that is something I do absolutely free for the right people. If you have 10 or more employees, if you want to grow beyond where you are today, you don't have to be an Inc. 5000 company, but you do have to be driven and hungry. Just go to genehammett.com, check out Start Your Journey. We'd love to connect with you there. Now, here's the interview with Bob. Bob, how are you?
Hello, doing great.
Excited to have you on Growth Think Tank to talk about scaling and leadership and all things growth.
Do it.
You were invited to come on the show before because you've had some tremendous success lately, but you've also had some tremendous success before this venture. But before we go any further, tell us a little bit about Aspen Funds.
So Aspen Funds is a fund manager. So we manage investment funds and primarily buying distressed residential real estate debt. So we own the notes, kind of the bank for distressed debt.
Love that. That's very interesting. I don't hear many people that's their focus.
Nope.
It's good to have a niche, right? Has that helped you grow the business to where you are?
Oh, definitely. I mean, one of the keys to a high growth business is high margins, in my opinion, because, high margins let you make a mistake here and there, right? Lets you hire, lets you spend on your growth. So much of your spending has to be internal when you're growing. And so high margins make it possible to do that. And the business we're in is actually fairly high margin. The unique kind of strategy we have, which my partner discovered, it's very tiny, very small, and very lucrative. And so that's the perfect way. If you're going to start a business and you want to be a high growth business, finding an MVP, a minimum viable product that's actually high margin, in my opinion, is the only way to go.
Well, you've been on the Inc. list before, but this isn't your first time in a high growth company. We were talking before we cut on the recorder here. You had a business before the tech bubble. You raised millions and millions of dollars. You were worth something crazy. And then you lost it all.
Until it wasn't. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The message there is, hey, when somebody's willing to pay you a few $1,000,000 for your business, consider it.
Okay. I think a lot of people listening in here would love to sell their business someday. But I will tell you, most of them, when you say that, they say, you know what, there's a few things I want to do before I sell it.
That's right.
So that's our segue into how do you create a scalable business that really you do love to work in? So what is scalable businesses to you?
Well, scalable. I mean, we grew from. I mean, I literally raised $100,000 from mom, and in my attic with my sister-in-law was how I got started, and just had an idea. I mean, it was the worst business plan I've ever seen in my life, and I've read a lot of business plans now, and it was a horrible business plan. But we scaled up to some 280 employees in 5 years, and became the fastest growing business in the Midwest region of the United States in the late 90s by revs. And so scale is a big deal, and scale puts an enormous amount of stress on an organization. It just stresses every area of the business. So figuring out how to do it is really critical. At the same time, especially in the tech business or other businesses, market share is really important. So scale matters, right? The guy that gets to scale fastest is the guy who wins. And so scale really matters. So being able to scale is a critical skill. And it's not taught anywhere as far as I know, but it is absolutely critical if you're in a rapidly expanding business or in a market share where it's a market share grab business. You want to be able to do that, and it's not easy to do.
I was talking with some clients the other day when they were talking about, my VC doesn't want us to be profitable because it's all about grabbing the market share.
Exactly.
And that's what you're kind of relating to is it different today for you in the way you run Aspen Funds?
Absolutely. I don't have outside investors.
Yeah.
Meaning running my management company. So when you take equity capital in your business, you take on partners, and those partners have their own dictates. And for example, as you just mentioned, venture capital has their own idea about the way they want to run the business. You realize a lot of these venture capital funds, I mean, they can be $1 billion. They want to put in, if you're going to do 100 deals, they want to put in $100 million, into a deal, or, so their minimums are huge. They don't care about how much money you spend. They care about the win. Are you getting the big W, right? And so they take you to the trough, and fatten you up. And so you get in a rapid scale mode, and it's win or lose. One of my first investors was a guy who was a very, very famous venture capitalist. He was one of the founders, one of the very first tech funds back in the late 70s and early 80s. And he said their model was they're looking for only businesses that could do 100x of their investment. So if you put in $1 million, they're going to get 100 million out. And they had 1 in 18 deals be successful. And so if you doubled or tripled, it was a loss to them. It was a write-off. They didn't care a lick about that. They're looking for the big W. So they're basically picked businesses that can scale super, super well. And they pump it full of cash, and 1 in 18 wins. The rest they don't care about.
Bob, my mind wants to go through a little bit of a journey with you. We were going to do this kind of off the cuff, have a good conversation about scaling your business. I want you to go back and think, and really here's the guideline. It has to be applicable to today's leaders and founders, and just share key inflection points as you went along the journey of scaling up your business. Inflection points are just those real turning moments where you either made a big decision that helped out, or maybe you made a mistake of some way. Can you walk us through some of those inflection points of scaling business?
Yeah, Gene, that's a great question. And it's something I never have really thought about, but that is really a great idea. And the first one, I told you I started with a really terrible business plan. And so the first inflection point I made, and this is probably pretty lame. I mean, everybody is probably light years ahead of me on this, but all my customers it was an advertising based business, horrible business plan. And all my customers saying, "Hey, this is great, but can you sell my product?" And I'm like, no, we're maintaining, journalistic purity here. And the pivot I made was actually listen to my customers. They wanted e-commerce. So I pivoted to what my customers wanted. And I mean, it seems pretty basic, right? But I'm pretty dense, and it worked. So all of a sudden we started getting a whole lot more customers. So that was really a, pretty obvious pivot for some, but for me, it was critical. That was a big deal. I think a second one was when I took venture capital.
Hold on a second, Bob.
I wasn't, go ahead.
When you say listen to customers, some people like Steve Jobs say don't listen to customers. I think we get twisted on what that really means. What are your kind of 1 or 2 key steps of listening to the customer so that you get insight and can make that pivot?
I think hearing their pain and hearing their needs, it's basic marketing and, serving your customers. So I get what Steve is saying. He's saying, hey, let's be outlier. Let's be creative geniuses, which I agree with, but you do need to listen to the customers, too, as far as, where are their pain points? Where's the market not taking care of them and, selling them something that they want and they're screaming for. So, it was a critical pivot for me.
I'm glad you made that clear. So you were going into your second point, which was taking venture money.
Taking venture money. So we became from a private company, or we just kind of closely held, to taking outside capital. I wasn't really comfortable with that, and I don't know these people. Are they good people? Are they honest? Are they, so there was just a ton of angst, and I didn't want to do it. And finally bit the bullet because I needed the cash to grow. So bit the bullet, and turns out, I learned a lot about what I won't do. And by the way, my latest business, I didn't take venture capital, and I wouldn't. So it's good and bad. It's pluses and minuses. So that was a big deal. But I really became a scale guy and figured out how to do it. So I got key skills, even though they put me on a trajectory that was either a moonshot or a crater, right? There's no middle ground. And it's a very, very risky, proposition, but incredible lessons learned at the same time.
Now, Bob just talked about going from a private company to taking outside capital, meaning, do you raise money or not? Probably one of the biggest decisions that you have to make as an entrepreneur. Are you completely confident in who you are and what you're doing and where you're going to be able to bring on outside capital? One of the things that you have to be aware of is that anytime you raise money, you are giving up the control of the business. And many times you're giving up all the control, because they will be putting people on the board. They will put people that have more experience in front of you, and so that they lead the team. Now, if you're prepared with that and okay with that, then that's perfect for you. But if you're not quite sure, make sure you step back, do the research you need to. If you want to have a conversation about it, check out, just go to genehammett.com. Love to talk to you. Now, here's Bob. All right. We're not going to go too much into that, but I'd love to know what that third inflection point is along that journey.
And honestly, it was when I hired. I'm a computer scientist from Berkeley. Okay. I'm kind of a geek, a level 10 introvert. And my management style, I used to call it like a mother hen with a hammer. I was not good with people. I wasn't a good manager. I get frustrated, let people have it. And so it was a rough business to work for me, And what happened is the VCs wanted to bring on skilled management, hello, duh. And so we hired a guy who was a leader of, I think he had 4,000 employees. He was a COO of a very large medical tech business. And he came on board. And honestly, this was so he was my president. I was the CEO. I learned from this guy. I learned how to be a great manager and how to actually communicate, with respect to people, and how to get people to move forward and do what you wanted to do, and how to. So that was. I just really became a very different person and a very different manager because of this guy. And can you learn from somebody who works for you? And the transformation of my life was absolutely extraordinary, just because I'd had models now finally of how I could see it, right? I could see how to do it, and so much of what I practice today is really stuff I learned from him, and then have taken to my own, put my own spin on.
I think a lot of leaders think that they understand management and leadership, but when you really pull back the covers, which I do some feedback 360s where I'm having this, most of them don't have a clue of the gaps they have in their skills of listening, of communicating, of really creating connection and understanding across the company and getting alignment. But you learn those from an experienced person that was ahead of you in the game.
Yeah. And who worked for me, of all things, Yeah. And absolutely. Seeing it in practice, you're right. There's these, level 10 managers, that are just crazy good at what they do. There's a reason that they're successful, and the reason the success follows them. And it's in a lot of books, but you don't see it really practiced out there a lot, do you? Maybe you do, but it's not super common to see that practiced.
There's a question in here that I want to make sure this is really clear. And I have no idea what you would say, but you learned from this person. Was their style of teaching you and learning from them, were they more like a coach or some other type of style?
They literally ran the business. Yeah. I observed them doing it. So they didn't coach me. I was just watching them do it. And I'm like, that is awesome, and just watching how they got people rather than just piss people off or frustrate people or those kind of things. They was just able to move the ship smoothly and calmly and change into massive new directions and other things by just clear communicating, by the way they did meetings, the way they did just performance reviews and everything else just completely shifted. I'd never seen anything like this. I mean, I think he was a student of a lot of the best thinking and, kind of best practices in management. But he actually practiced it. And so to see it all was new to me as a computer scientist, for sure. They don't teach that stuff in coding schools,
Now, Bob just talked about the importance of clear communication. I think clear communication is good, but you know what's better? Explicit communication. Explicit communication is not about cussing or anything like that. It's about you communicating in a style that can't be misunderstood, that people get it right the first time, that people understand, they buy into the ownership. You're on the same page. We could put a lot of details around this, but the core of it is, when's the last time you put any intention on being a better communicator, a better listener, ability to share your thoughts in a concise manner, or maybe it's just the ability to make sure people understand what you're saying, because sometimes what you say and what they hear are completely different. Explicit communication is the job of the CEO, the founders of the company, to be a model to everyone else and what that means. I've got some trainings that we do here, but if you want to have a conversation about you being the best leader you can be, just check me out at genehammett.com. Now back to Bob. They actually teach the opposite. As you
I'm
mentioned,
sure.
being an introvert. We have time for one more inflection point across this journey. I know losing everything was difficult, but would you rather go to something else than the resilience that you earned the hard way?
Yeah, Gene, that's a tough one. That's a tough one to say yes to. I mean, it was so painful to lose everything. And I mean, I was on the front page of the paper going up, and I was on the front page of the paper going down too. And it's just no fun.
Yeah.
But it became the best time for my family and my kids. I got 4 kids, all whom we're all super close, and they all have families, they're all married successfully, and grandkids, and my wife. I mean, so the whole family thing, for whatever reason, it really worked. It really was the best thing for me to get off the hamster wheel at that point. And nothing you would choose again, I guess. I mean, I would keep that thing alive had I been able to, but it's so glad it worked out. And now I'm have something I actually control, and I'm not beholden to outside investors, and I still got my family, and all that working. So honestly, it's all better, minus few zero.
Would you hold the belief that we go through these things that are difficult in life for the purpose of creating who we really are and who we're meant to be? Because now you're a different dad, you're a different husband through this journey, but you probably had to go through some of that dark period to be who you are today. Is that fair?
Gene, again, great question. And there's absolutely no question, but it's not just going through that, because I know a lot of people that go through these things and they don't do well.
Yeah.
It's about responding properly and about maintaining your hope and building your relationships and, sowing into those relationships and just strengthening those relationships, and about resilience. I was sharing a friend of mine who won national awards, many national awards. She's a professor of accounting, but studies, these interesting, it has a lot of interesting grants and studies she does. And her number one that she says the number one success factor in the earth is resilience and being able to bounce back from things. That matters more about to your success than any other factor that they've measured. And so that really matters. And I do believe, it's like at this point in my life, I look at all the kind of pit stops I've made or pivots or other areas, and I think every single one has added to today and to my success today. There's no question that we can turn them, we can make them, we can allow these things to hurt us, or we can learn from these things and put them in our backpack for the future, and they become tools for us. And I mean, I'm sure you as a coach, right? And coaching people that are going through challenges, having those challenges qualifies you, and so you put them in your backpack as a tool. And today I can honestly say it's like every everything in my life has added up to this moment, and everything in my life makes sense for where I'm at now. So absolutely.
I didn't know where I'd go with that, but I can tell you one of the things that has kept me going through all my tough times, I lost it all, which I shared with you, and I've shared on the show many times before, but I have decided, and this comes from a Jim Carrey kind of quote where he said, I've decided that life works for me, not to me.
Wow.
And
wow.
He kind of like framed it as like, I don't know if this to be true, but I've just decided this is what it is for me, that all the hard times that I will go through are for me to develop and grow, instead of these things happening to me. And it's just helped me, that one quote, more than most.
Wow. That is absolutely profound. I love that. And I would absolutely concur. Absolutely concur.
Bob, you've been a pleasure to talk to today about the journey to scale and losing it all. I really appreciate you sharing from your heart so that others can learn the hard way. It is a tough decision about taking money or not. You've painted the picture of both sides. I think it's one of the biggest decisions that an entrepreneur has to make in that journey of scale.
So good. Great to be here, and best to you and all your listeners.
Well, I want to wrap this up because one of the things I love to do is like reflect back. What did we just hear? So Bob's listening in, so he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I took away from this a lot of notes about, it really takes a special kind of leader to go through this journey. It's not easy to do it. It takes a lot of courage, a lot of confidence, learning from others, and having the ego put aside to learn from this president that came in is a very good lesson to learn, that you don't have all the answers. And it's okay not to have all the answers. In fact, it'd be crazy to think that you did have all the answers.
Right.
You have to be open to seeing another way to lead, manage, to get the work done. And that's one of the big lessons I see here. Now, the other piece behind this is when you do lose it all, and we've all had tough moments, that you've got to dig down and say, how are you going to get back up? Because that is the key to your long-lasting journey and really serving humanity, serving yourself. So those are the things I took away from today's episode. I want to remind you that if you are on your own journey of leadership and entrepreneurship, and you want to connect with others in a fast growth community, learn from them, just like what Bob said, we get together in Fast Growth Boardroom to do that. If you think you're a fit for something like that, check out fastgrowthboardroom.com. We race Porsches, we do some dune buggy stuff, we do a lot of fun stuff, but the core of it is you being an extraordinary leader, growing your team, and growing the value of your company where it is today. Just check out Fast Growth Boardroom if you think you're a fit. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.